the Kentucky Wildcats. This is another team that really struggled last year. Mark Stoops flirted with Texas A&M. Former Texas A&M head coach Mark Stoops came back after about 4 hours on the job in College Station.
Yep.
And he didn't really put himself in the good graces of the fan base after making those flirtations. 4-8 season, a 1-7 mark in conference play. They did somehow knock off Ole Miss in Oxford, which is just remains hilarious to me that they somehow found a way to do that. And it's going to be a completely retooled look on the offensive side of the football, guys. Zach Calzada still playing college football, and this fall he will be doing it in Lexington, Kentucky. If you remember Zach Calzada, he was one of the architects of that big Texas A&M upset over Alabama all the way back in 2021. Spent some time at Auburn, didn't really get to see the field because of injuries, but the last 2 years, guys, I don't know if you've looked up his stats. Pretty good at Incarnate Word. He's thrown for 6,200 yards, a bunch of touchdowns, I think over 50 touchdowns. He's been slinging the rock around in San Antonio, and that's exactly what the Wildcats need. I can't remember the last time that I've been confident in a Kentucky pass game. Even with Will Levis a few years ago, you're kind of just waiting on him to throw an interception at some point. So if Calzada can take care of the football, just be a consistent threat in the passing game, I think that's automatically going to take a step up for Kentucky. Elsewhere on the offense, they do have a good-looking running back room also, with Jamarian Wilcox coming back, Dante Dowdell coming in from Nebraska, and Seth McGowan coming in from New Mexico State. They lost Dane Key out wide, which is going to be a massive loss for them. He was one of the lone bright spots, really took over portions of that Ole Miss game last year and willed them to a victory when that offense was stalling out. But, I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, I go back to it. Consistent passing game is going to be key. I feel confident that Kentucky can figure out a running game, but they've got to figure out a way to replace that production from Dane Key, and they've got to find a way for Zach Calzada to just consistently distribute the ball, not turn it over, and actually have it be a threat so that run game can work.
Yeah, Barian Brown gone to the portal as well. So Jamori Macklin, I believe, is the leading returner out wide. They bring in a couple of guys for Calzada to throw to. Kendrick Law from Alabama is one of the names that you'll recognize probably if you're a college football fan. The offensive line is the key to me, at least on the offensive side. They were awful last year. They couldn't protect the pass. They could not set up the running game. This year, they bring in 6 transfers to try and fix that offensive line. So, Calzada certainly carved it up at UIW and did a great job at the FCS level. It's a different speed, and he's been in the SEC, so maybe that gives him an advantage coming back to what he formerly knew. I mean, he played fine at Texas A&M. There wasn't a ton of help out wide for him when he was in Aggieland, and then you mentioned just never really saw the field at Auburn. It didn't feel like a good fit when he left for the Plains in the first place, and so that kind of felt like a wasted year. But if they can keep him upright and give him time to throw the ball, we've seen him be a difference maker. I'm still of the mind that we should build him a statue for that 2021 upset. So, let Calzada cook.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, and, we joked when he was at A&M that you didn't really get to see him get going until he started to get hurt. It seemed like every time he left the field a little bit banged up, he'd come back out and, really turned it up, right? So, if Kentucky's got to find a way to get the magic glow stick going or something, they're going to have to figure it out. But, it's just another one of those programs that kind of similar to Mississippi State, we were just saying, really just felt like all of the good things that you could have said about the team last year ended up getting stolen by other teams and kind of snatched out the portal real quick. You guys mentioned Dane Key and Barian Brown. Those are two, massive guys combined for over 1,000 yards. Lots of production to replace. I think a lot of times with the portal era, we kind of have to look around and say, well, there's a lot of transfers that came in. So a lot of the teams are going to sit there and look at their own guys and say why they're so excited about them. And if you don't like the team, you're going to sit there and tell you, why they're actually not very good and they transferred in the first place. I'm maybe a little bit more pessimistic on the supporting cast they brought in to really turn things around and save them. But, hey, maybe just a different mix of guys, a different group of guys to say different things in the locker rooms, just a slightly different message, get some of the stink out of there, right? Where, a lot of the guys last year probably didn't like being in the locker room that came in and, only won one game in conference. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. Lot of turnover on that defensive side really concerns me for them. I don't know that they're going to be stopping a whole lot of people this year. So we'll kind of see how that goes and if the pieces gel correctly on that side of the ball as well.
Yeah, Trey, Kentucky's calling card for the last several years has been defense. And last year, they didn't have anything going for them. They lose a guy like Keyshawn Silver, I believe, to USC, a former 5-star defensive tackle. So is there anything on the defense that you kind of found, excuse me, that gives you hope that the Wildcats can get back to kind of traditional form over there?
Yeah, the secondary, I think, is going to be the bright spot on the defense. They bring 3 starters back in the back end. Front 7, though, is going to be just a complete unknown going into this year. There's a couple teams like this in the SEC, all in this episode that we'll talk about today, but they're one of them. They're just going to rely on a lot of dudes that haven't proven it at this level of college football. Maybe put up some stats. Brought in a nice, intriguing edge piece, Marquise Humphrey Grace out of South Dakota. 9.5 sacks up there for in the Missouri Valley, I guess. I was about to say the Jackrabbits, but I don't want South Carolina or South Dakota to get mad at me because that's their biggest rival, I believe. But just intriguing pieces like that. But, you know, the Missouri Valley, as good as it is the FCS, is just a big transition from being able to do it in the trenches in the SEC. So it's a lot of unknowns. The schedule, it's another team that gets no favors from the schedule. How's this for a stretch, guys? Middle portion of the year, they get Toledo at home to open, who is the preseason favorite in the MAC. Ole Miss at home to Eastern Michigan, but then this middle portion at South Carolina, at Georgia, get a bye week, host Texas and Tennessee, then go to Auburn and host Florida all in consecutive weeks. That's absolutely brutal. And even if they are starting to figure it out, it might not even translate in the win-loss column just because of the teams that they're up against.
They're chipping uphill. There's no doubt about it. There are no gimmies on this schedule. At Vandy, you know, is after that brutal slate, and then they have to go to Louisville to finish the season. So, I mean, there's a legitimate case that it could be, you know, it could get dark early by the end of September for Kentucky fans. One more name I'll call out, David Gusta comes over from Washington State. He was an animal last year up on the Palouse. He'll be at nose guard this year, trying to replace Silver along that defensive line. But yeah, and this is one of those kind of narrative shifts, I feel like, where maybe even last year, I think it was last year, we were talking about, okay, you know, jokes on Mark Stoops for nearly leaving, but all he has to do is just kind of keep the ship from overturning, and Kentucky will never get rid of him because they love going to bowl games, and that's it. And then he stepped on the landmine, and they go 4-8, and
now he's on the hot seat.
And now he's on the hot seat. And truly, I think it's going to be an example of the grass is not always greener. And, you know, sometimes you truly need to look around and smell the roses.
And also a reminder that you too can impact your decision makers if you just throw a big enough fit on Twitter. So remember that the next time that your school floats a potential coaching candidate, if you're making a change.